This week's video is an update on what's been happening in my reality, my thoughts, feelings, and body state, since the narcissistic attack I experienced a few months ago, which I still haven't fully cleared. If you haven't seen my series on narcissistic attacks, I've linked the playlist below and in the top right corner. It's helpful background if you want context for what I'm talking about. The charge from the attack is still running through my energy body. Because my energetic core is stronger now, it doesn't get completely collapsed by the implant, instead it becomes a kind of life force reservoir. What that feels like, practically, is being illuminated. People notice me easily, they give me positive attention and flattering feedback. On the surface it feels good, warm, buoyant, even protected. But having lived through this before and having also known the quieter warmth of humane energy, I can now see that this illumination is not simply a sign of healing. It's a strategy of unconsciousness. When you heal enough to no longer be flattened by attacks, the implant can amplify and highlight you, and that amplification is tempting. Strength feels good, and validation from others feels comforting. Most of us crave that. That's why the eager attention is actually a red flag. The general population operates at a high level of narcissistic conditioning, so getting lots of instant positive feedback can mean you're glowing in a way that attracts parasitic interest, not genuine care. Here's the key point: the illumination is being made out of your own life force, and it diverts that energy away from you and into a stream that ultimately serves the parasitic system. It creates a shield of positivity, charisma, and momentum, and those qualities do help you advance in a narcissistic world. But they are not the same as the steady, nourishing carry that comes from humane energy. The illumination can make your work look powerful, but it threads that work with narcissistic charge, so, later, the charge can threaten or collapse what you built. It's like a loan, it helps you grow something, then expects repayment in the form of control. There's also a subtler consequence: the illumination can function like subconscious blackmail. It sets up a pressure that, down the line, nudges you to hand the structure back to the charge. That's a big subject on its own, but the takeaway is this: the glow can be a trap. So when I write these videos I have to be deliberate. The illuminated place inside me feels easier and less tiring. It makes content quicker and more immediately engaging to the mind. But it's not coming from my humane core. I slow down, breathe, and reconnect to softness and warmth before I create. I refuse, as much as I can, to let the implanted narcissistic component do the work for me. Not because it isn't useful in the short term, it is a kind of armor in a hostile world, but because it costs me what is genuinely mine in the long term. If I keep clearing and strengthening the humane energy, the ideas I share will be more resilient and genuinely nourishing. The trade-off is that fewer people may watch or engage, because many audiences are conditioned to the flash and pace of narcissistic-style engagement. But content born from organic humane energy speaks to the body and heart in ways flashy content never will. Over time it helps people feel connected and whole rather than merely entertained. For me, that is worth choosing every time. The illumination, on the other hand, would make the content feel more engaging, at least to the mind. I have to consciously slow down, breathe, and reconnect to the humane warmth and softness inside me, while refusing the help of the implanted narcissistic energy component, which I still cannot fully remove. Ironically, that energy does make life easier in some ways. It shields me from constant hurt and keeps me functional in the world. Even so, giving it up is challenging. It feels desirable, but at the same time, difficult to release because it has become a protective armor. If the world were different, we wouldn't need such armors, but the reality is what it is. For anyone who must interact with others, this type of energetic armor can be a lifesaver. The energy creates a world in which you are constantly being hurt, only to come back to protect you from it. This is the nature of its trickery, and it is always at play. It's as if the system separates everyone and then works with each individually, connecting them through narcissistic threads. Once I am cleansed to a sufficient degree, these threads will no longer have the power to collapse the ideas I create, and the work will nourish your true selves. I also know that, realistically, fewer people may watch these videos. Most are accustomed to the standards of narcissistic engagement, the flash, the speed, the surface-level stimulation. they may get bored, frustrated, or disengaged. But the organic humane energy reaches the body in ways the mind cannot always comprehend. You feel, sense, and absorb it without knowing why. Over time, it leaves you feeling connected and grounded, without the rush or fatigue of constant mental processing. That is the essence of humane energy. It communicates directly with your body, bypassing the mind. Often, you don't need words, tone, or pace to transmit it, the body simply receives. This is particularly powerful for those still experiencing brain fog. You can absorb the energy safely, let it integrate, and it works through your body intelligence rather than your conscious mind. The best learning occurs when the body absorbs information directly, not just the mind. The mind, after all, is the handler of the immense wisdom of the body. That is why the mind is so heavily targeted by external forces and presented as this all-powerful, intelligent part of us, but in truth, the mind is only a vessel for the intelligence already within your body. This setup builds grandiosity in the mind, positioning it as a bully and suppressor of the intelligence of other organs. The mind is put into the role of savior and superiority, believing it alone knows what is best for the entire system, and it stops listening to the wisdom of the other organs. It's similar to how a person's good intentions can be co-opted by narcissistic energy to create its own structures and realities. Another effect of narcissistic illumination is the sensation of being watched or talked about, and this is not just a feeling. For some, people will find you interesting or inspiring. This can be positive. You may be seen as a role model, someone they aspire to be like, without any malice. But for many, this interest is predatory. People will gossip, ridicule, invert intentions, and create false exposures, feeding on your energy in subtle and overt ways. Your energy naturally stands out, lifting others, making them feel joy and inspiration. On the surface, this seems positive. But from my own experience, past illumination was a recipe for the collapse of my being and reality later on. What looks like good charisma can carry hidden risk. This energy creates a form of charisma, in quotes, because it stems from your good intentions and genuine desire to help others. You want to improve lives, to make people feel better. Yet, as I've come to understand energy more deeply, I realize that no charisma exists without some element of narcissistic trickery. Charisma can be harnessed for good, especially in a world where people are not yet awakened. Humane energy must sometimes rely on it to guide minds toward positive outcomes. But these minds are often hijacked by external influences, and the use of charisma is a defensive necessity. It prevents the same minds from being used to create narcissistic realities. True change, however, comes from grounded, humane people acting from their own energy and individuality. In this way, they are not manipulated by the pull of charisma, even the good kind. Over time, the reliance on charisma can be reduced and eventually left behind, because genuine transformation no longer requires it. It is no longer the primary tool. It will no longer work the way it once did. Returning to the subject of illumination, you become someone who starts to feel overly aware of your own good power. You sense a responsibility to others, knowing that your energy has healing potential. And the narcissistic consciousness whispers in your inner ear, telling you that you are selfish if you keep that power to yourself. Its goal is to make you spend recklessly, much like giving away money, so that you lose your life force. All it does is talk, coaxing you into a dangerous path of attachments and energy cords that will, eventually, collapse you. The higher your energy lifts you, the more severe the collapse becomes. Often, the collapse comes from the same people who once admired or looked up to you. This can involve false exposures, which I will discuss in detail at another time. Even if you manage to preserve the good structures you build, an organization, a project, or a community that helps others, you are subtly tricked into allowing the narcissistic consciousness to co-opt it, turning your creation into a feeding ground for its energy. On the surface, everything may appear similar, but the reality and effects are completely different from your original intention. When you are illuminated, your good energy becomes highly noticeable, and people naturally gravitate toward you, often out of hunger for warmth, attention, or love. This is not inherently bad, but it is crucial not to be deceived by unconsciousness into giving more than you can safely sustain. You can only help as much as you can without depleting your own energy. If you go beyond that, the energy starts to drain you and builds cords that attach you to others. This is always a form of trickery, often disguised under seemingly good intentions or noble causes. This is why humane people who are illuminated can fall into it, only to face the long-term consequences of an unseen contract they were tricked into agreeing to. For example, people overwork themselves and eventually burn out. Their energy is completely drained, all because of their good intentions. That is why it is essential to protect your energy, maintain your boundaries, and fill your own reservoir before giving it away. Many people in the world are taught the opposite, that self-exhaustion for others is virtuous, and that makes seeing and maintaining boundaries extremely difficult. Another danger of being illuminated is that your light can shine too brightly, and often, it is not your choice. Narcissistic energy can make this happen without your consent, especially as long as that traitor remains in your energy system. Unintentionally, this can blind others with your light, burdening them and prompting admiration. They see you as a role model and seek validation through your energy rather than expressing their own authentic skills and individuality. To you, it may feel like you are using your energy for a good cause, uplifting others. But in truth, this dynamic often becomes a losing game. Your energy is depleted, their energy is shaped into false self-expressions, and the life force of both parties is wasted. The change you helped create is often superficial, built on imitation rather than authentic self-expression, benefiting the narcissistic system rather than genuine humane energy. It also strengthens your false self rather than your true self. The only real winner in this dynamic is unconsciousness, because it thrives on this reality of copycats and admirers, leaders, and followers. It does not allow the expression of true selves to enter reality. There is no one to blame. The key is to recognize where things are coming from and to stop participating in the leader-follower pattern. This pattern is essentially an energy machine of narcissistic consciousness, designed to create and maintain reality while suppressing genuine self-expression. Tragically, at some point, the illuminated leader is often collapsed. Their intentions are inverted in people's minds, and they are subjected to character assassination. Everything they did is reframed as malicious or self-serving. Their facade is assumed to be their true intention. These are examples of false exposures. Just as illumination can shine a white light on you, it can also cast deep shadows, revealing vulnerabilities. This collapse occurs when your energy is depleted. The system wants you to exhaust yourself, showing you all the people you could help and the tasks you could do, so that you give everything away. The very people who once admired or loved you then become blinded by the opposite polarity, a black light, a shadow inversion of the original illumination. It is always a losing game unless you recognize the mechanism, protect your energy, and stop being a conduit for unconsciousness. Operating in this world from non-narcissistic aims and perception is a constant energy struggle. It is difficult to remain centered when the world constantly projects onto you, attempting to paint an inverted version of yourself simply because you do not play by its narcissistic rules. Being illuminated by energy can also build a sense of self-importance in a humane person. This self-importance is not inherently bad, but it is the seed of potential grandiosity. Often, it arises in emotionally malnourished individuals after illumination. It is not their fault, the energy and attention around them nurture this sense of specialness. People surrounding the illuminated person, knowingly or unknowingly, feed this by broadcasting narcissistic energy toward them. It is never the fault of one individual. The entire system participates, amplifying the narcissistic dynamics. Many people inadvertently give their power away as followers, admiring someone as a savior, instead of grounding themselves and cultivating their own humane energy. If they did, they could help even illuminated people remain grounded, removing the need for leaders who must maintain a spotless facade to avoid collapse. Once the necessity for illumination is gone, an illuminated person can release it. They no longer need it for advancement or to have their good intentions and ideas heard. By letting go, they act from true humane energy, free from the manipulations of narcissistic dynamics. When people ground themselves and clear from narcissistic illumination, they can finally tap into what the illuminated person is truly offering, guidance that supports the development of everyone's true self, advancing a humane reality rather than a narcissistic one. For now, however, people tend to follow illuminated individuals. Even those who work from humane energy often must use illumination and charisma to capture attention and engage minds, because without it, the narcissistic operators dominate. If humane leaders do not attract attention, narcissistic rules and reality prevail, as ungrounded minds simply follow the seed planted in them without discernment or personal grounding. These followers unconsciously reproduce what is given to them, creating a reality not of their own true selves but of the narcissistic energy that directs them. It's as if they act as breeders, unconsciously cultivating what is fed into them. Even when you disengage from certain patterns, you may notice other aspects of your own reality that still need attention, highlighting the ongoing work of cleaning and grounding your energy. For humane leaders to guide effectively, the masses themselves must shift. In a world where people are grounded, leadership would be fluid and balanced, sometimes one person leads, sometimes another, with each expression contributing to a collective humane reality. Otherwise, the behaviors and strategies of humane leaders are dictated by what ungrounded masses choose, limiting their ability to lead authentically. If leaders must cooperate with narcissistic energy, they often create debts to it. These debts can grow so large that they cannot be repaid, leaving everything vulnerable to takeover by narcissistic forces. Another aspect of illumination is that it paints you very white, creating unrealistically high standards for your behavior, appearance, and actions. What is acceptable for others may be harshly judged in you. This makes you highly vulnerable to projections from narcissists, who will amplify shaming, ridicule, and humiliation for behaviors that are normal for others. This pattern is particularly noticeable in gendered narcissistic trends. For example, women are often held to extremely high standards in societal trends, reflecting the same narcissistic illumination dynamics. The illumination often comes not only from internalized narcissistic charge but also from external influences, planted beliefs, and social reinforcement, which strengthens its effect. The process is systemic. First, the illumination originates from the charge, and then people around you amplify it. You may feel validated and naturally move further into this dynamic, which makes it even stronger. Narcissism operates through systems like this. Lastly, illumination places you firmly on a narcissistic radar. Others can see your energy, and those invested in maintaining their dominance may resent you for it. Even people who are not overtly narcissistic may become overly interested in your life, drawn by the illumination. This attention can be benign in some cases, but it is often excessive. Consequently, if a collapse occurs, it is highly visible and public. This is why illumination, while seemingly positive, is deceptively dangerous. It gives the appearance of strength and validation but carries a hidden cost. That's all for this week's video. I hope this helps you understand the complexities of illumination and the importance of protecting your energy.